Well, hi everyone, and welcome again to a new episode of Lowdown on Low Code from the team at analysis.tech. As always, we're trying to bring you some information that's sort of unique from guests that you may not necessarily have heard of before or heard from before, and on topics that are topical for today, the hour, or the year. And today we have a new guest that we've been trying to get onto the podcast for some time. We're really happy to have him on today. I'm Dave Marcus, one of the partners analysis.tech, and I am joined today by one of my esteemed colleagues, John Rymer. John, how are you doing?
Very well, very well. Thanks, Dave. Very excited, as you say. We have a guest we've been trying to get on for a long time. We finally have Massimo Pezzini. Massimo, welcome. It's
Thank
such a
you. Thank you,
so
John and Dave, for the opportunity. I really look forward for this conversation with you guys.
yeah. So Massimo, you and I go way back. We for people who may not know, I worked for Forrester. Massimo worked for Gartner. We competed kind of, but whenever we got together, we always had a great time. Shared a lot of fun, knowledge and experiences and all that. And the Massimo, I don't know, you may not remember this. At one point, I was a client of yours.
I do remember very well. You were a
That's
client with Iona Technologies, my friend.
that's right. Dear departed Iona Technologies.
Yeah.
Anyway, Massimo, I know you. Dave knows your work at Gartner. Great work for so many years. But our audience may not. So we always like to start with our guest's journey. Tell us how you came to be this rock star at Gartner, covering integration and orchestration and all that wonderful technology.
Yeah. Quoting Winston Churchill, it was blood, sweat, and tears, if you want. But essentially, before joining Gartner, I spent almost 20 years in the industry, in the software industry. I did everything you can think of in software. I was a developer. I was a system developer, an application developer. I did the customer support, the consulting, marketing. So everything you can think of when it comes to software, but sales. I never was in sales. So in 1996, it was, I got in contact with a former colleague who was already then a Gartner analyst, and she told me, hey, we are looking for a middleware analyst. And at the time, I was one of the few people in the world knowing what middleware was, right? So that's how I got the job. And then I started covering integration technology, transaction processing. I was covering Corba, and these kind of things when you were at Iona. And then, very naturally, my career developed, and I was originally, the team was small, so we were covering a lot of different things. But as the research team got larger, I was focusing more and more on integration and service-oriented architecture and these kind of things. And so then after 25 years, I said, well, enough. So I retired, and now I'm an independent advisory and consultant. I don't do research analysis, etc. Every now and then I write something, but that's not my job. I'm more in the consulting business. And in this capacity, I have the responsibility of being the Workato head of research, which is fundamentally doing what I was doing with Gartner in the Workato context. Yeah.
Right.
That's me.
Right. Thank you, Massimo. You did such great work for so long at Gartner. And congratulations on that. Dave, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Massimo, I came across you primarily with early engagements over the last couple of years with Ricardo. And it was always interesting to sort of hear your perspective on things. So let's kind of jump right in.
Sure.
We are definitely seeing a rise in both the need for and the delivery of what I'm going to call orchestration technology as a foundational need for the next generation of business applications. And in the world of AI agents and AI technologies, that feels that this is even more relevant. But people use this term in a very broad variety of ways today. Isn't it just another workflow engine? So Google announced A2A. Isn't that all we need? What actually is this in your mind, and
Yep.
why is it so relevant and so important?
Yes, I would say, the tragedy of this industry is that we ran out of three-letter acronyms and we ran out of terms, right? So you may say that to some extent you can think about orchestration as the next generation of workflow to some extent. However, workflow and automation are relatively narrow terms because with workflow, normally people think about, yes, automating human activities, right? People working together and having tasks and sharing goals, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas with the term automation, which was essentially hijacked by robotic process automation, people think about, okay, automating repetitive kind of tasks. So I prefer to use the word orchestration to indicate something broader. It is like automation, but it's not about just automating short running terms. It's about automating end-to-end business processes, which can last for minutes, hours, weeks, days, right? Long and short running business processes. And the second consideration is that it's not just about enabling humans to participate in the workflow. It's not just about having systems participating in the workflow. It's about having whatever resource an organization may want to take advantage of in order to automate those business processes. So automation to me means making applications, APIs, humans, AI agents, robots, devices, etc., working together in order to accomplish a task. Right. So that's my definition of orchestration, if you want. There are narrower definitions of orchestration. There are broader, but this is the one I'm using right now. Make sense?
John, over
Awesome.
to you.
So is in that context, Massimo, do you consider application integration to be part of an orchestration environment, a solution, or is integration really a separate category and a separate discipline?
Yeah. Well, we can answer to this question in an architectural way and in a product way, right? So
Right.
from an architecture perspective, I believe that integration, application integration, data integration, process integration are included in orchestration. We said earlier, orchestration is about enabling applications and systems and humans and robots, etc., to working together. And of course, part of these endpoints that you want to orchestrate across can be ERP applications, CRM applications, mainframe applications, etc. Right? So, an element of, in other words, an orchestration platform must support some degree of integration capabilities, right? So that's the architectural answer. In other words, if you want to design an orchestration architecture, you need to really have this purely orchestration layer, but you need to have application integration, data integration, etc., capabilities underneath, which help the orchestration layer to interact with whatever system you want to interact. So that's the architectural answer. The product answer is different because for historical reasons, we know that there are some products which are purely focused on automation / orchestration. Think about BPA, business process automation tools, robotic process automation tools, to a certain extent, right. B2B, gateways, etc. And there are other products which are way more focused on the integration thing, ESBs, data integration tool, API management, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. So what I have observed as a trend over the past, I would say at least 10 years, is, however, a convergence between those two words, right? Mm-hmm. So more and more traditional application integration vendors, they are adding orchestration type of capabilities on top, and vice versa, more and more vendors focused on process automation and stuff are adding integration capabilities, right? So the answer from an architecture standpoint, I think, is clear. From a product perspective, it is that going forward, I believe that we are going to have integrated platforms supporting all the aspects of integration, including all the aspects, of orchestration, including the integration bit.
Great. Thank you. Dave, over to you.
Right. So Massimo, let's just talk a little about the challenges of integration. Because the reality is that it's all fine to be able to orchestrate stuff, automate things, but you've got to be able to touch those things that you're looking for. No data exists within a silo.
Yeah.
And so you've written a lot that, that this idea of synchronizing data across independent systems is important, especially in this AI age that we're in right now.
Yeah.
But companies larger and even smaller have a broad range of systems of record, if you like. And so, is there a point in time at which you need to think about the role of synchronization versus the role of actually touching real time with those applications? And how does one make the decision as to which of those is most appropriate? And are they in fact separate technologies, or should the integration layer just support both of those capabilities together?
Well, let's say that this is a chart, a slide, which I've been using for the past 25 years, which says fundamentally that there are three aspects when it comes to integration. There are three aspects. The first one is data consistency, right? Synchronize the databases with one another in order for different data sources and databases to agree on the fact. The second is the process automation aspect. And the third one is the API composition type of aspect, right? So I believe that 99.99% of the organization in this platform, they need to support all these different use cases. So they need to have data synchronization, data integration kind of capabilities, as well real-time application integration type of capabilities. Because in the real world, you have all these type of issues, right? Mm-hmm. In certain industries, maybe data integration is more relevant than application integration, or in certain departments and business units, data integration is more relevant than application integration, etc. But as I was said, I can really have a hard time thinking about an organization or a company or a business which doesn't need application integration. As well, it's difficult for me to think about somebody who doesn't need data integration. So the two things are complementary, again, from an architectural perspective. Similarly to what we said earlier, for historical reasons, good or bad, we have tools which are very much focused on the data synchronization, data consistency type of scenarios. Think about ETL, ELT kind of tools, change data capture technologies, data virtualization kind of technologies, etc. Those are very, very much focused on solving the data integration problem. On the other hand, we have technologies such as ESBs and so on, iPaaS and so on, which are more focused on the application integration aspect, right? So speaking with my client, I very frequently have customers who say, well, for data integration, we use this, say Informatica, Talent, whatever. For application integration, we use that. Maybe MuleSoft, maybe Workato, maybe Boomi, et cetera, et cetera. However, very much like let's say, vertical integration we were talking about, where we were saying the integration layer and the orchestration layer are collapsing into each other. I believe that the data integration and application integration layers are also collapsing into each other. Why? Very simple, because in a real life project, you may need to mix and match all these things together, right? And, have dealing with 3 data integration platform, 2 application integration platform, making them work together is getting harder and harder, right? Yeah. So I think is a customer demand to have a more consolidated, integrated platforms.
Very interesting. It strikes me, Massimo, that products, given that there are different products, that each one handling the capability, and they're starting to converge. Products typically have skill sets attached to them. Yep. So, you could make a good argument that people who really understand application development don't understand data synchronization very well,
and
they
vice
are,
versa. Yeah.
and vice versa. So there's got to be a convergence of skills and people
Yeah.
as well, doesn't there?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, again, there are two answers to this question. As a matter of fact, I've been advocating for a long, long time that organization, they should have an integration team, not a data integration team, a process integration team, the application integration team, etc. They should have an integration team, right? So a team of people who really can master the different technologies and can design the solution to the particular business problem by mixing and matching those different technologies as needed, right?
Right.
However, we have things like low code, to your point, and even more so going forward, AI assisted
Right.
development, right? Which are blurring, if you want, the lines between application integration, data integration, process integration, etc. Now, just referring to my Workato experience, just as an example, I'm not saying it's the best platform in the planet, even if it is, but with Workato, you can automate processes, integrate data, integrate application, publish APIs, consume events with one single platform using one single development metaphor, which is low code, of course. And from the point of view of a Workato developer, they don't really know whether they are doing application integration or data integration, or they are doing integration. Right? Now, this is particularly relevant for mid-sized organizations, which cannot afford to have that many differentiated skills. But it is becoming more and more relevant also for large organizations, right? Am I saying that the data integration tools or the API management tools are going to disappear? No. What I'm saying, however, that John, you know it very well. You know, if we have a spectrum of, let's say, we have 100 integration challenges to address, the complexity of those challenges goes through a very classic bell curve, right? 20% are very simple. We can sort it out with a file transfer. End of the story. 60% are medium complexity, right? So a low-code based platform can do the job in an excellent way. And then we have another 20% maybe, which are extremely complicated and require us to use Kafka and API management and this and that, right? So the point I'm making is that in large enterprises, more and more organizations are realizing that using a high-end classic ESB like TIBCO, web methods, etc., is an overkill when it comes to supporting the 20% simple and 60% medium. So it makes sense to use this super sophisticated platform only to address those 20%, which is really, really, really super complicated and requires very, very advanced and very, very flexible platforms. Right?
It's a portfolio.
It's a portfolio.
It becomes a portfolio. Hey, Dave,
the point is that, sorry.
I'm sorry, Dave, let's go right into the promotion.
Sure, absolutely. So really, really quick break. You are watching or listening to a Lowdown on Low Code podcast series from Analysis.tech. Analysis.tech is a specialist analyst firm focused primarily on the low code application, automation, and related AI space. That's all we do. Those are the things that we spend all of our time on. And we do everything from promote and create research through to traditional advisory services, as well as these type of podcasts. And these podcasts are all about being able to give you a sort of a quick insight from a range of sort of industry luminaries into topical things of the day and things that we hope help you sort of make the right kind of decisions. Please go to our website, take a look at our LinkedIn posts and on our YouTube podcast. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you want. We're always interested in adding more content and more people as well. John, back over to you.
Massimo, you're an industry luminary. I didn't know if you appreciated that. But
I didn't know, but thank you.
So, Massimo, what we're talking about here, this takes me back to my days at Iona and Corba and distributed objects. What we're talking about here is distributed systems writ large. And one of the challenges, of course, is reliability and security and so forth. But one of the real challenges here is governance
Yep.
of distributed systems, and we're getting more and more distributed. It's really hard, to govern these systems. It's really hard to get funding for governance and recognition. Um, do you see that orchestration technology will help us with governance? Is orchestration going to help us tackle this growing challenge in your mind?
Well, let me put it this way. When it comes to orchestration, governance is essential. Is cannot be an afterthought. Governance, as you know, is often an afterthought. I have 10 APIs. Why the hell do I need governance? Oh, now I have 10,000 APIs. I'd better do some governance stuff, right?
Right.
So we cannot work in this way when it comes to orchestration. At the end of the day, what is orchestration? Orchestration is about having a number of predefined, let's say, components or services, if you prefer, and being able to combine them together in order to accomplish the task, implement an end-to-end business process, or maybe implementing a composite application, etc. Right? So if you don't have governance, so in other words, if you don't know what are the component parts or reusable component that you have, if you don't know what is their quality of service and security requirements, etc., etc., you will never be able to compose, right? You will be able to use composition technology, but you will never be able to compose. In other words, you will not be able to assemble new applications by essentially recombining and composing together pre-existing assets, right? Which to some extent is the good old Corba dream, right? Having objects and having them talking together, or SOA. The SOA was very similar. So therefore, I believe that organizations which want to seriously address orchestration, they really need to put governance front and center. Otherwise, they are doomed. Otherwise, they will never experience the benefits of orchestration. Right?
Do you find, Massimo, that the products that provide orchestration capabilities also provide governance features that are sufficient, or do you think people are going to have to adopt governance products that are independent of any orchestration layer?
Let's say that, yes, the orchestration vendors, let's say they are trying to add governance type of capabilities to their product. The limitation is that this is governance focused typically on their platform, right? So, for example, think about repositories or catalogs or marketplaces, call it the way you want, right? So if you really want to do this orchestration composition, you need to have a single place where you go and figure out what are the components that are there and which are those that you want to use, et cetera, right? But in principle, the components that you want to leverage can be built on any platform. You are going to have some components coming from SAP, other components coming from Microsoft, other from Google, et cetera, et cetera. So in an ideal world, we would like to have a single repository where you store all the components and you retrieve them and you orchestrate them, right? So this, I believe, is a market opportunity for some smart vendor to really provide vendor-neutral governance platforms, being able to orchestrate, not to orchestrate is a job of the orchestration platform, but govern and deliver, govern distributed, heterogeneous component parts, and also to, for example, provide these repositories, catalogs, marketplaces the way you want, independent from the technology provider fundamentally. But it is a market opportunity. I'm not aware of any vendor seriously providing a serious governance type of platform yet. But I think it's going to come.
Thank you. That's great insight. Dave, over to you.
Great. So, Massimo, let's shift a little. The world of AI right now, no one doubts about the fact that it is changing the way we think, changing the way we build, changing the way we work. But there's also reality that says, the last couple of years have been very noisy years. And, with crazy amounts of hype, people have also gone through a lot of projects that haven't necessarily been particularly successful. And then others certainly that have. Um, how do you see the role of generative AI and AI agents really playing out in these business outcomes that organizations are focusing on as they transform their organizations or their businesses? And, where are people willing to live with the cost of bad outcomes or somewhat unpredictable deliverables from predictive algorithms or LLMs? And where's the fine line for this? And is there a point in time at which people just don't trust these things? Or, are the guardrails really getting to a point where they are solid enough to be trusted to deliver the kind of outcomes that people originally expected?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a Gen AI expert in the general sense, so I can only speak from the point of view of leveraging Gen AI in the context of orchestration, et cetera, right?
Right.
Now, what is very interesting, I think, is the following, right? Well, when Gen AI came in, I said, well, we have a job because these Gen AI things will have to be integrated with the pre-existing system, et cetera, right? And so I believe that from a business perspective, the business value of Gen AI and agentic as well will come if organizations are really capable of injecting AI type of capabilities into their business processes, right? So having a ChatGPT, telling you fancy things about, the president of the United States is fun, but it's not very valuable from a business point of view. But if you can inject these capabilities into the business processes, then the value is relevant. Now, I have some statistics, which I will be happy to share with you in some other occasion, showing how organizations are increasingly doing that. So they have a regular business process, let's say order management, right? And they are injecting AI in general and Gen AI capabilities into these processes to make those processes smarter, right? To help them with decision management, to have the processes extracting data from, for example, documents, using Gen AI to classify documents, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some very interesting examples which I have seen over the past, let's say, 1.5 year, and showing how with relatively low cost type of initiatives, they can really deliver tangible, measurable value for a business perspective. I have a customer who saved something like 200,000 work hours by doing a very little, very simple Gen AI implementation on top of the pre-existing order management business process, right? So this is to say that in my experience, at least, it seems that when the scope is relatively narrow and well-defined, the reliability and trust, let me say, that you can achieve from Gen AI is good enough to support these business processes. And what is also interesting is that in the very early days of this type of experimentation, where people were starting to put Gen AI capabilities into the business processes, they were focusing on low-risk type of things like, I don't know, support virtual support agents for IT, right? But now I'm seeing people using this type of capability into business critical processes like in finance, in HR, and sales, etc. Right? So there is money at risk. So again, I cannot answer to your question in general terms, but what I can say is that in those situations where the scope is relatively well defined and narrow, there is enough reliability, enough trust as to take advantage of these capabilities to automate and make those business processes and applications smarter. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to talk about intelligent business applications and processes, and not business applications and processes, right? To indicate this idea of injecting AI capabilities into the applications.
Right.
Awesome, John.
So last, we want to return to orchestration for a minute. Last question. Um, we have noted we're the low code guys. We focus on application development platforms, and application development platforms may have an orchestration capability. They may have a process or workflow capability, but you also to deliver an application, you typically need UI, you need data management, you need, as you say, you need some integration. There's a variety of services that a full platform will provide. So one of the things we've observed is that, particularly with AI, because orchestration is so important, vendors like Camunda and Workato are getting a lot of attention because orchestration is so important. But those vendors don't provide all the other services that you need to build a full application. How do you think this is going to play out, Massimo? Are people going to favor the vendors who come in and say, we've got it all? We've got all the services you need, including orchestration and AI and so forth. Or do you think people will focus more on
Best of
building,
breed, correct.
assembling their own platforms with the best of breed services that they can find?
Yeah, I think the trend is clear that those platforms are getting broader and broader in terms of functionality, right? However, you cannot expect that those platforms will provide the best data management, the best orchestration, the best this and the best that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that the answer to your question, roughly speaking, is the following. When it comes to mid-sized organizations, most likely mid-sized organizations will go for a integrated end-to-end platform. Because as I said, they want to do this orchestration and composition, etc. They want to do AI, etc. But they don't have enough skills and the architectural acumen which is needed to put together so many different pieces and make them well. So when it comes to mid-sized enterprises, I have no doubt that 60, 70, 80% of those organizations will go for a integrated platform.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to large enterprises, large enterprises is a lot of fun because they have different business units. They have 3 or 4 CIOs, 6 or 7 CTOs, and everybody has its own idea on his or her idea on how to do things, etc. And moreover, they have business units. And the business units, they may have very different requirements. I was speaking this morning with a company, I cannot mention the name, of course, but they are in the luxury business, and they sell jewelry, they sell perfumes, they sell watches, they sell clothing, etc. So, and each and every one of those business units has its own set of requirements. Selling $1 million jewel is very different from selling a $50 cloth, right? So inevitably they have differentiated requirements, and they have differentiating buying centers and power centers, right?
Yeah.
So what I think is going to happen is that they will look for integrated platforms to cover this 40, 60%, maybe 70% of things that or problem that doesn't require this super complicated type of capabilities, but they continue to extend, if you want, the core platform with additional functionality, which are specifically designed to support one particular scenario. Think about a very simple example. Think about IoT, right?
Yeah.
Manufacturing company I was mentioning earlier, they do have IoT type of requirements. Can you expect that the Camunda or Workato provide IoT? Maybe not. So maybe they can solve the problem by adopting Workato or Camunda or something else, and an IoT platform that must be integrated, right? So I think the key point is what we were doing earlier, that from a thought process perspective, people should think at integration. They shouldn't think about data integration or application integration or event integration or this or this. They should think integration. They select the portfolio of technologies which are required, knowing that more and more the cornerstone of their integration strategy from a technology perspective is this integrated orchestration platform.
Thank you. That's great insight, Dave. Let's close this out.
Brilliant. So Massimo, thank you for the time today. I know it took a little while for us to get the setup, but we hung in there, and really appreciate the time and the insights from you as well. This is sort of an interesting world that we're in right now. I think companies are going through some interesting challenges, making the right decisions and knowing what those right decisions are. And so getting those kind of insights is definitely incredibly helpful, as they go through dealing with all of the noise and the hype and everything else that is out there today. Thanks again. We look forward to chatting to you again in the future. But have a great day, and thank you for those people on the call for listening.
Thank you for the
Thank you, Massimo.
opportunity to speak with you. It was a great meeting you, John, after so many years. So I hope it was useful and interesting for you, and I look forward for other opportunities in the future. Thank you again, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.